All right, welcome to Creative Cash Flow Planning Day 2. I am so excited for those of you who are going to catch us live. Super excited for those of you who are catching the replay. If you have not watched the first one, the first part, and if you have not done the activity, the paint your own, draw your own happy little money tree, make sure you go back and do that. You are going to want to have that today and especially for tomorrow. So get your piece of paper and we are going to talk today all about the fact that there's no such thing as mistakes. Okay, I know you're like, what? This is a big thing with Bob Ross, okay? Bob Ross would be painting and like something would happen and he'd be painting and drawing and doing his thing on canvas and like something would like smush, right? And he'd be like, oh, there's no such thing as mistakes. He sometimes calls them happy accidents and he would just paint right over it, right? Nope, here, oh, we're just gonna turn this into a bush. We're gonna turn this into a tree. We're gonna turn this into a bird, right? No such thing as mistakes. And the same goes for your cash flow planning. And I know you're thinking like, what, really? So we're going to talk about it today. So again, if you don't have it, go ahead and grab the piece of paper that you painted or drew your happy little money tree on yesterday. If you did not, no big deal. Just get a piece of paper, get some colored pencils, get a pen, whatever you want to draw with, and we're going to do another activity today. So while you're gathering that, I just want to recap yesterday. So day 1, we talked about happy little money trees. And our biggest focus for day 1 was the fact that this gets to be fun. And I wanted to share because if it's not fun, you don't want to do it, right? So one of my clients, Julia, bless her heart, her biggest thing is she loves Legos. Lego sets, Lego collector items. And so she, every time she wanted to buy a Lego set, felt really guilty about it, even though she had money. And so I was like, we're doing this. We're going to build this kind of fun, build, get it, Legos, into your cash flow plan. And so we created a plan to have a sinking fund for Legos built into her cash flow plan. And so now every month she saves a certain amount of money into that sinking fund so that when maybe like a limited edition set comes along, she can get it with no problem, no guilt, no fear. Everything gets to be exciting. She gets to have fun. Isn't that fun? I love it. That was like her way of building fun into her cash flow plan. And so that's what we talked about yesterday, that it gets to be fun. The process itself gets to be fun. You can have wigs, you can do games, you can do competitions, you can make it fun, but also build fun into what you actually get to spend your money on, right? Release all judgment, enjoy the process. But one of the other things that really keeps people from actually sticking with a cash flow plan is that something inevitably goes wrong. I hear it all the time. Something came up. Something came up. Something came up. Something came up. Something always comes up, right? Inevitably, something goes wrong. Maybe you go over your grocery budget that month, or maybe your car needed an oil change and you forgot to plan ahead for that, right? There's so many different things that could come up, and it makes you feel like you didn't know what you were doing or you did it wrong, and it brings you into this like frustrated place and can make you kind of feel like a failure. And why would you want to continue with a system or a process that makes you feel like a failure, right? And so we're going to dive into that, but before we do, if you're jumping on, say hello in the comments so that I know you're here, and I'm going to tell you what our activity is for today. So grab your piece of paper and your colored pencils or whatever it is. And I want you, there's 2 ways to do this. You can either do it with your imagination or with your vision. So the goal here is I want you to draw a self-portrait of what your face would look like if like everything was going right with your money, right? If you had a cash flow system that felt really good, if you didn't feel like a failure, like whatever that face is, I can show you mine. So you have 2 ways. One, do it with your imagination, or the other is you can actually take a selfie of what your face would look like. So that was mine, right? And I want you can draw it from your selfie, you can draw it from imagination, whatever you want to do. And I want you to draw a self-portrait of what your face would look like when everything with your cash flow plan is going right. Okay? And while you do that, we're going to dive in. So, like I said, I think there's a point at which when things start to go wrong, you start to feel like failure and get really frustrated. And so the first thing I want you guys to know is that every change that we implement into our world, no matter how positive that change is going to feel very uncomfortable at first. It's going to feel uncomfortable until it is also familiar, until your brain is like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I get this. We do this all the time. I understand this, right? When your brain is like, oh, yeah, this is normal, then it starts to feel more comfortable. But until your brain can see that process and see it as familiar, your brain's going to fight you on it, right? That's just reality. That is reality. That is your brain attempting to protect you. And so as you start to implement a creative cash flow planning process for yourself, the first rule of no such thing as mistakes is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace as you start to implement a new system, because anytime you start something new, or something you're not super familiar with, like drawing a self-portrait of yourself, it's going to feel a little uncomfortable. You're going to be really tempted to say lots of negative things about what you're doing. If you're drawing, how many times have you already gone, this is weird, I'm not good at this? Or were you so convinced that you would be so bad at a self-portrait that you chose to just not do the activity? How many times do we just tell ourselves, I can't do this, I'm so bad at this, I don't know how to do it, it's not going to go right, it's not looking right, I failed there, oh my gosh, my eye is crooked, right? That we end up just giving up altogether, right? Or keep going, but like being mad at ourselves the whole time, right? So give yourself grace as you learn a new system, as you implement a new process, as you implement any kind of changes inside of your cash flow planning system. Give yourself grace. There's always going to be a learning curve. There's always going to be that time that it takes for you to settle into something, right? And so give yourself grace. The second thing is we get to reflect and refine. Meaning, when something doesn't go right, inevitably, you get to take a minute to stop and say, what happened there? Right? Like, what did I do wrong? What went wrong? What went right? Why? Why did that not go right? Why did that go right? What was good about that? What was bad about that? You get to actually bring some self-awareness into the process and reflect on all of it to really know what pieces need to be adjusted. Think about when a painter is like making art. I'm not an artist, can you tell? And what if they like get the wrong brush, right? They want to make like, trees, and instead they get this like big brush that's like this big, right? You can't make a tree branch, a little leaf with a brush that's this big, right? So they go, oh, I got the wrong brush, right? Or maybe they have the wrong color, right? They're like, oh, it needs to be a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, right? And they need to make adjustments, right, on the color. Or maybe, I know my mom is an artist, like I said, maybe they just hate the medium. Maybe they tried using oil paints and they're like, this is stupid, right? They're like, I hate oil paints. I don't like this. This doesn't work for me. This doesn't feel good for me, right? And so they make an adjustment. That is what you get to do even with your cash flow plan. And so if you set a system in place and you get through it 1 month and you're like, that sucked, right? Instead of just going, that sucked, I suck, you get to go, okay, what sucked about it, right? What was the thing that actually sucked about it? What was the thing that didn't feel like it fit quite right? Maybe you were like, I implemented this huge spreadsheet with all these automations and I hated every second of it, right? You're like, spreadsheets? Not for me, right? Well, it's not me. I love spreadsheets, but not everybody does, right? Not everybody does. So you get to make those little adjustments like, you know what? I'm going to go with pen and paper this month and see how that feels, right? And maybe turns out you actually need a combination of the two, right? Maybe you need pen and paper for the regular daily tracking, but then a spreadsheet to bring all the numbers together, right? It's okay to do that, right? You get to reflect and refine your process until you find what feels good to you, right? And then the third thing is that you get to implement and utilize your own values and priorities around money to create your cash flow planning system. You don't have to listen to all of the people who tell you what you should and should not be spending money on. I literally just had a conversation with someone in the comments in a group who was kind of explaining a situation, and he was like, "So unless you're gonna avoid talking about my spending habits," and I was like, "I don't talk about your spending habits." I was like, "It's not what I do. It's not what I do." Am I going to make you look at your spending habits and make you decide how you feel about your spending habits? Yes, but I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't spend money on, because your values and your priorities are going to be different than my values and my priorities, and then different than Diane's values and Diane's priorities, right? And so you get to utilize your own values and priorities to decide what happens within your cash flow planning system, which means there's no such thing as mistakes. When other people try to tell you you shouldn't spend money that way, you shouldn't do it that way, you shouldn't have prioritized that, you shouldn't do this, right? You should be doing that. And you hear all that and you're tempted to be like, oh, I screwed up, right? But did you follow your values? Did you adhere to your priorities? Did you do the things that felt really good to you? Are you aiming for your fulfillment-based goals, like I talk about in Intuitive Money framework, right? Like, did you do it the way you needed to do it? Well, then it doesn't matter what everyone else says, right? Because those people don't control your money. Those people don't control your money. I always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? When one thing goes wrong, don't throw everything out. Make it yours, make it your own, and trust yourself with that process, right? Trust yourself with that process. And part of this is the reason why I created Intuitive Money Mastery, the program. This membership program is created such that as you work through these pieces, as you start to put your own cash flow planning system together, as you start to figure out exactly what you want it to look like, we're here for you. Inside of Intuitive Money Mastery, you actually have access to an entire money mindset framework that you can use to understand yourself better, to make peace with money, to trust yourself with those decisions. And then you get to take the foundational strategies for money management and put them through your filter of your values and your priorities, your reflect and refine process of what feels good to you. You get to take those strategies and make them your own. And then you have that time inside of the program to do that with us, right? That's why I created it. I wanted there to be a place where you got to learn how to make peace with money, how to trust yourself with financial decisions, how to find financial fulfillment and create a system that actually works the way that your brain works, and have the support and the accountability and the coaching that you needed to get there. And that's why I created it. So today, I want you to really think about what kinds of mistakes you've made in the past that felt like mistakes, and how can you reframe those to reflect and refine and understand that there's no such thing as mistake. How can you learn from them? How can you move forward? What kinds of changes might you want to make your cash flow planning system actually feel better for you? Because there's no such thing as a mistake. There's only learning opportunities. Tomorrow, specifically, we're going to talk about the power of what you can actually create when you take the time to dial in your money system. When you reflect and refine and you find those pieces that do work, you find those pieces that do feel good for you, and you put those pieces in place. We're going to talk about the power that that has in your life. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So make sure that you are here for that tomorrow. But for today, your homework is, number one, I want you to share your self-portrait in the group. No judgment, guys. I want you to share your self-portrait in the group. I will share mine. And I want you to tell us how you're going to be giving yourself more grace in the cash flow planning process. How can you be more kind to yourself? How can you give yourself more grace as you start to learn how to implement creative cash flow planning? That is cash flow planning that actually makes sense to you and feels good to you and is what you want it to be. It's your masterpiece, right? Now, I'm going to tell you more about Intuitive Money Mastery tomorrow, but if you do want to know more about the membership program, the link is in the description of this video. Feel free to go and check out what that's all about, but we're going to talk about it more tomorrow. All right? As always, I love you guys. I hope that you have a fantastic Sunday night. I will see you here tomorrow for day 3 of Creative Cash Flow Planning, where we are talking about how you can move mountains. All right, as always, trust yourselves and enjoy the journey.